So more Americans are walking away from the system. Off-grid isn't fringe anymore. It's a financial escape plan. How do you escape the AI robots that are going to kill you soon enough? Here's some instant context. Mortgage applications for rural homes are up 80% since the pandemic. Off-grid living is now a mainstream reaction to rising cost and burnout lifestyles. Well, how the hell does this pertain to cash flow real estate, Mitch? How does this work? What are we doing
and
here?
why is Travis talking about AI killing us again?
Well, before cash flow real estate,
No.
here's the thing. Like the last week, I've done a deep dive on AI and trying to understand. I mean, this is a huge wave. This is bigger than the Industrial Revolution. It's bigger than the internet. And my first thought was interesting. I was like, I got to move off grid. I literally had that thought. I thought I've got to go. And so I think that, and whether I do or not is not the point. But like, I think that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I think we have a lot of people in our country or in the world that are looking at this AI revolution and this technology and the way things are going. And we can't help stop it, but we can change the way we live our lives. And I think some people will be drawn to living a life that we used to live, right? A life where maybe you're gardening more, you're outside, you're hiking more or whatever, but like consciously deciding to be outside of the system. And maybe it's outside the system, but they still have sort of internet connectivity, right? Or they have cell phones, or they have some of this stuff, but like the way it's going is so aggressive technologically that I think we're going to see a portion of the population peel off and go live off grid. Now, does that mean they're alone in the woods? Not necessarily. We could also see cities or small towns or small communities or even commune style. I mean, right? They go, look, here are the rules of engagement here. We're not going to be involved. Like, for example, we're not going to have robotics and AI do everything here. We're going to have humans still participate if we get to that. So I do think that there could be a push toward that. Now, how do we capture that as real estate investors, or what does that mean to us? I think that's what this is about.
Well, it's interesting. I've got some more data here from our dumbass Dylan, our intern. Rural property prices jumped 64% since 2019, but remained 14% cheaper than urban equivalents. The pandemic really did spur that, whether it's AI or whether it's like people recognizing that the social fabric they live within, what they've been taught, is actually pretty fragile. And when governments took over and were locking businesses down and telling people to stay home and to vax or whatever your opinion is on any of that, at the end of the day, people looked around and they're like, no, like I want to get out of the cities. I want to get out of the traffic. I don't want to rely on the grocery store that is now, the shelves are completely empty after a run on the grocery stores. How do I become more self-sufficient? And I think cash flow real estate can give that to you, right? If you have real estate portfolios driving passive income, then you can pretty much live wherever you want in the world, you know?
I do think there's a couple options, because I have a close friend that kind of left the matrix, and he didn't do it through cash flow real estate. And I've always kind of said, hey, look, there, like, time freedom can be from different sources. Like, one is you just create enough just enough cash flow through your real estate or through your business to be financially free. That's one way to do it. I also had a close friend that gave away, sold everything, literally like lived off the land, lived off grid, moved up to the mountains, Hawaii. I mean, sadly, he eventually died of a bacterial infection from some bad water, but he also had the time, right? So like, I always kind of saw him as like, he lived a free life. He lived the way he wanted to live. I'm choosing to do that through cash flow real estate. That's more interesting to me, but I also respect the man or woman that truly wants to escape from the matrix and live fully, functionally off grid. That level of autonomy is super inspiring and super impressive to me as well. I'm just personally choosing to do that through cash flow real estate because I think it creates, more options, but there's something valid to that. And I do think to Travis's point, 2020, we saw a lot more people realizing how fragile society was, and, the ability, like, hey, I need a level of autonomy to live off the land. I need a water source. I need a food source. I need these things, and I'm not relying on the grid in order to live. And as AI and technology starts to take over certain industries, I do think we're going to see a lot of people, some will adapt to that and others will say, I want nothing to do with it.
Yeah. The scariest phrase is we're the government, we're here to help. We saw that during the pandemic. They helped a lot of people out by shutting their businesses down and wrecking their lives financially.
Well, and it's not just a COVID situation where society is sort of fragile and it's just a house of cards that falls over. I mean, even when the economy is healthy and our towns and our cities are going on steady as she goes, I think a lot of people are asking the question, are we doing it right? Like, look at our school systems and look at the influence of other children in our schools on our children and the way that they teach. Like the social media is another one that's massive. And so I think people and AI is going to just lever this up. I think it's just going to turn it up just like COVID did, just like social media has. It turns up this fundamental concept, or this question is like, is society doing it right? And at what point do we say, look, let's get back to our roots? I think that where humans were for thousands of years before this was like we were in the woods. We had like a simple cabin. Before that, they were nomadic. There was tribes of 100. They were very close. Today, we live in these houses that are technologically sound or advanced. We don't know our neighbor. We're on social media to connect, but it really disconnects us the most. So like are we living right? And what does that do for real estate? I think it reshapes the real estate. I think it reshapes the real estate market. I think it pulls people out of big cities. They start questioning more self-sufficiency, potentially small towns that have set rules and guidelines against it. I mean, there's a lot of potentials, but...
Okay, so we talk about generating enough passive income to replace your living expenses. Well, if you're living in the Bay Area and the cost of living is through the roof, right? Cost of housing, rent, whatever that is so expensive. Not only does passive income replace your day job income, let's say, but you can then move to areas that cost a lot less to live. And we're seeing that people not only are escaping the cities because they don't want to be caught in a traffic jam when, the drones come to kill us driven by AI, but they also want to move to areas that cost a lot less to live. And you can live in there. We're talking about that a $200,000 off-grid property can replace your paycheck. Well, if you're used to living in a house that's $500,000 or $750,000, well, maybe you can move to a rural area. And not only that, but the cost of living is less, the cost of housing is less. But now you can put solar panels on your roof. You can put a generator in place. There's things because you have freedom of choice, you can now choose to where you live and how you live, which could cost a lot less, which can get you to financial freedom and time freedom a lot faster.
But also, if you're listening to this video and you're like stuck in a job, you're working too much, you're out of shape, you're unhealthy, your relationships are broken, you don't have the time, like I would be extreme. Consider extreme actions to change your life, because guess what? Life doesn't go on that long. Like you're going to be 80, 90 before you know it. You're looking back. And guess what? The number one thing that for me that I'm trying to avoid is to have regret. And so if you're not spending as much time you want with your wife or your kid, notice I'm not talking about what car you drive, because who cares? What does it look like? What do your relationships look like? What does your health look like? If you're not optimizing those, then ask big questions and take big action. I remember, I talked in a video before about a guy that I knew in LA. He was super wealthy. Well, guess what? Or super rich, I should say, had no time. He could trade all that like tomorrow. It'd be totally free. And whether that's off-grid or on-grid, he could make that decision. Off-grid could offer other benefits, but I would say like be extreme with your life. Take extreme actions, especially if you're looking at yourself and you're going, man, my health, wealth, relationships, my spirituality is all shit because I'm working for the man and I hate this. Take action. Maybe that is living off-grid for a year or two just to get clarity.
Well, I think that clarity piece is really important. It kind of goes back to our podcast episode last week. You saying you ask your kids, like, what do you want your life to look like? Right. And so it's the same thing. What do you want your life to look like? And there is so much, kind of tying it back to real estate, there is so much rural land out there. I mean, I took a 2.5 road trip with my wife and 2 kids in 2020. We hit up the 8 Western states over a 2.5 month period. And we went to so many beautiful places. But one thing that was so obvious is there's so much land. There's so much rural land. And then what was interesting too, we met people. I met this one family in particular. It was a husband, wife, and their son. And they had been living off-grid, traveling in their RV for 4.5 years. This guy was a day trader. He was a stock day trader. And he was making, I think, close to 6 figures just trading whenever he had Wi-Fi most days, right? But they lived. They had solar. They had a water catch system. Like, it wasn't necessarily the life that I want. Like, I enjoyed that for a short period of time, and I think my wife could have done that forever, and we may do it again. But like, they were living the life that they wanted, making good money doing it. he emailed me recently. You know what he's doing with the money that he's saving? He wants to invest that in real estate. So here's a guy living off grid, right? He's living off grid with his wife and son, been successful, day trading. He also created some kind of, I think software, like algorithm software for trading. So does well financially, but lives the life he wants, travels all over the country. And now we saved up enough money because literally has almost no expenses. And he's going to go put that into some cash flow real estate.
Well, because he's still trading hours for dollars. I mean, you do day trading, you're still an input for a desired output, but he wants to elevate that to the next level.
Yeah, I never saw him.
Yeah. I was going to say too, I don't know. I think it's not just off grid. It's also potentially out of country. I met a gal in Spain. We were talking to her. She was sitting there with her kiddos at a coffee shop, and she was saying how they both worked right in Texas, and they both worked full time. They had these corporate lives, this all this stuff. Well, they both left their jobs, sold the property, bought a rental property, moved to Spain. Now the husband works part-time because he wants to, makes a couple grand or whatever. They live a massive life for $5,000 per month, a little bit of work plus the rental property. But because the dollar's a lot stronger in Spain, in this particular area, they live on the beach. They have all the time in the world. So it's not just off grid. It could be out of country. It could be South America. It could be Thailand. It could be somewhere where the dollar goes a lot further. But I think the big question is like, if you're not happy with your life, what action are you going to take? And how do you go parlay, resources you have today or the time you have today into assets that keep paying you forever so you can make these decisions?
Well, I think the building blocks, to your point, is like take an inventory of the assets that you have. I've got the skill set. Maybe I've got equity in my house that I can parlay into cash flow real estate. I also feel like not only are the drones that are going to kill us powered by AI driving, people either to be nomadic living out of the country or in rural areas, but like the elephant in the room here is inflation. Like inflation is also going to drive people to areas that cost a lot less or areas where they can control their life more. Like I can grow my own vegetables. I don't have to go to the grocery store and spend $200 for a bag of groceries. I can control my expenses a lot more, but it really comes down to decoupling yourself from the system. Take the red pill, get out and figure out what's available to you.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to see communities treated like this, because I think some people really love this. They're obsessed with it. They're going to kind of learn all these things. They're going to, teach themselves how to make sourdough and how to have a farm and these rain catch systems. But I think others kind of like the whole glamping idea, right? Like people have camped for a lot of years, but some people it's a new thing, right? And so for them, it's like they'd rather go pay to go stay and have this like glamping experience. And I wonder if we're going to see that kind of off grid too, where these communities are popping up, where there's kind of a collective of folks that, maybe it's a tiny home community, but they have a community garden and they have some community power through solar, and they have either a rain catch system or some kind of filtration system for water. And I wonder if there's an opportunity within real estate where you can, essentially move into some of these off-grid type. I'm sure it already exists on some level, but as technology advances, I just think there will be, a desire for that simpler life. I mean, my wife and I talk about it all the time. Well, usually I'm talking to her about how I think AI is going to take over everything. And she's like, I don't want to hear it. I don't like it. It freaks me out. Like, that's not, I like just, living life the way it is. And so
but bingo though, you just hit it though. She likes life the way it is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So that's that pull. Sorry, I'm interrupting you, but
no, that's the whole point. I think we're going to see people that they don't want all these technological changes. They don't want, you're already seeing people, leave the city. They did this a lot, during, COVID time, where they left to escape the matrix and go, be as autonomous as they possibly can and not have to rely on stores and not have to rely on kind of the system to take care of them. And so I do think we may see a lot more of that. And to tie it again back into real estate, there is so much land out there. There's so much land in our country and around the world, and resources too. Like, I actually think there's an abundance of resources, abundance of land, abundance of opportunity that we could turn into some really beautiful, cool things and really beautiful communities as well.
Well, there's also great tech like Starlink with, Elon Musk. Like, you can live anywhere and have a high-speed internet connection. Maybe that's how you're managing your assets remotely. There is amazing advances in technology for, solar and off-grid living. And so I think we're in a period of time where we can really take advantage of that technology and live the life you want more than ever.
Well, you can also create you could go as far as off grid where you're like, no internet, no electricity, no nothing. But you could also take, like you said, sort of take like an a la carte, a menu of technology and create a really good life that's sort of not plugged into the system. It's a little bit different. You have to be diligent on what that looks like. But I do think we're going to have more and more people doing that. I also think that as technology continues to take over and AI takes over, people are going to look for maybe not living in those situations, but unique experiences that provide time in those situations. And so genuine human connections that are not on the phone or places that aren't necessarily serviced by robotics and AI. And so that genuine experience like that we've had before. I mean, your wife said it. My wife said the same thing. I talked to her about AI and she goes, I don't want anything to do with that. I just want my life how it is. And I'm like, well, you don't understand. That's like standing in the ocean and there's a big wave behind you. And I'm like, there's a wave about to hit you. And she's like, I just want to take a picture. Okay, great. You want that. That's great. But that wave's going to, take you out. So a lot of people, I think, are going to, whether they want to live off grid or not, they're going to want to experience that. They're going to want to go back in time for a week. That's going to be the vacations, or could be, one option.
My brain kind of went there as well. Like, I'm like, gosh, I don't know if that's what I would want to do forever, but I'd be really interested in, going and staying somewhere for a month or more, like, and just seeing what is that like to live in a smaller community? Everyone's contributing. You're living off grid, kind of more that communal lifestyle. Like that is very interesting to me. And I think there is, there's some beautiful land throughout the country that you could do that with.
Well, to go off script a little bit, I mean, we're real estate investors, and Mitch and I talk about this all the time. Like, what's the next opportunity in asset classes? Like, we like mobile home parks. You do a lot of triple net industrial, but maybe there's unique opportunities. Maybe you buy an RV park and turn it into a tiny home community, and maybe you make it off grid, and maybe it's self-sufficient, and people like that. If you want to be a cult leader, though, you have to create your own community. So if you go to live in another community, then you have to be the lieutenant cult leader. And I don't think Mitch wants that. I think he wants to be the head cult leader.
No, I'd rather be at the top personally.
Right. But, right. No. But I'm just saying, like, are there opportunities in real estate? Like we have a guy in GoBundance, which is the mastermind we're in. Him and some friends bought land way off the grid, and they built these nice houses. It's all generators. It's all solar powered. It's all gardens, community gardens. And they live an amazing life, and he manages his businesses and real estate portfolio.
Or if you're talking about the same guy that I'm thinking, they also have an airstrip and fly their planes in and out of the mountains of Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't have to like go out in the woods and whittle chairs. Well, you could pick your own life.
I mean, this is not the asset class we're part of. We buy mobile home parks, but like I do think there could be an opportunity in folks in the real estate industry going and buying land and carving out several acres and creating rules and guidelines for inhabiting that land and what that means to be there, and selling and or leasing plots inside of that. So imagine 1,000 acres, and there's going to be 1,000 families with 1 acre per, and there's a town built. There's an entire city,
Mitchellville,
about 1,000 people. So, but 1,000 people, and there's certain guidelines like an HOA on crack, right? But you're doing that because you're setting rules to match a certain need in the economy. I mean, that could be a thing. I don't know if we would venture into that, but I do think that could be a thing.
Well, Travis, the guy you're talking about, you know how he could afford a 100-acre mountaintop? It was through cash flow real estate, right? And so,
bingo.
Exactly. He used cash flow real estate.
Must be nice.
To buy a mountaintop, put it in an airstrip, and fly in and out of there and be fully self-sufficient. Yeah. So, I still always go back to like cash flow real estate gives me the freedom opportunities to do things. And I've watched it give the freedom opportunities for other people to do things that are so outsized what I think the average person would see as reasonable or even likely. But it starts up here in the head. It's a dream. It's a desire. And then taking those acts towards those things that you want your life. Like this guy said the same thing. Like, what do I want my life to look like? And in 2020, he didn't like, all these mandates and government control. And he had enough cash flow and freedom to say, what do I want my life to look like? And then go out there and fucking build that. That was his dream, right? And he was able to do that because he had been stacking cash flow real estate all these years.
Well, you say it all the time. It gives you options. I mean, whether you want to live off grid and catch rain or some hybrid of that, or live in a city or whatever you want to do, just gives you options. And I think most people don't have options. Most children have more options than adults. I remember when I was in my teen years, I thought I loved my life because my parents gave me freedom. I had all these options. I could go to friends' houses. I could ride a motorcycle across the country or jump on an airplane. I flew when I was young, and I had all these options. I was free. And I got into the working world and I was like, oh shit, I'm not free. I was more free when I was 16, 17, 18 than I was when I was 25. And I think that's sad that we lose our freedom. And if you're serious about getting it back, cash flow real estate is the way. It's the only way I know to get it back is to put your time and your resources into creating cash flow that actually pays you forever. It disconnects that, hey, I'm going to trade my time for dollars.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think whether you're, wanting to invest off grid or on grid, there's so many opportunities in real estate. And this is just, one of so many. I guess, none of us, like for us, it would be a newer asset class. But I think it's keeping that open mind, having a, opportunistic mindset of how you want to invest in real estate. Make sure it aligns with the life you want.
I do want to workshop that some more. How do you create communities? Like we said, we own mobile home parks. We don't own the homes. You just rent dirt to people. How can you take that concept and how can you create communities that are off grid? Because I think that would attract a lot of prospective tenants or a lot of people that would be interested in living in those communities, because I think that's going to become, like we said, it kicked off with the pandemic. You've got the AI wave coming. I think there's going to be more and more demand for people that want communities like that.
Yeah. I have an easy answer. It's the 0 to 100 commune.
Well, then you two have to arm wrestle over who gets to be the cult leader, right? Because
I think we're both the cult leaders, and you're the hype boy. I think that's what it is.
The hype boy. I get to mow your lawns with my.
It's the Gabe and the Mitch, and you're just the hype boy
with no gas. Yeah,
we'll put you in a little cape. You'll run around and say good things about us.
It's we'll just call it. And the guy named Travis.
And the guy just the guy.
Yeah,
the guy out there.
The guy.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. There's another episode of
we'll
the
put you on a little
scooter
podcast. Yeah, a little. Give you.
Yeah.
Since you got different length legs, you get a little scooter.
All right. Well, there you go. So move into our commune. Mitch and the Gabe will be your commune leaders, and we'll stay tuned for our next episode of the 0 to 100 podcast.
See you guys.